Hello, welcome to STH English. You should be forgiven for thinking that this is some sort of a comic relief arranged by India on a rather lazy Saturday for the consumption of people hungry for entertainment. But really, this is not comic relief. This is supposedly serious business. Here is the Indian Army Chief, AP Singh. Weeks and months after the war is over, after the world has, through satellite images, certified who won the war, whose aircraft were shot, who got a bloody nose, after 33 times the US president's assertion that he had to negotiate a ceasefire because this was spiraling into a nuclear war, and after dozens of articles that have appeared in international media across the world have confirmed that Pakistan came out to be the winner, has held a press conference with some old images trying to prove that actually they had shot down at least 5 of Pakistani aircraft and had done remarkable damage, including AWACS and Pakistan's air defense system across the military fields. Now, going purely by the logic of how these briefings are done, briefings are essentially meant to highlight and close rumors close to the event, such as a war or a conflict or a military adventure. Briefings are not held months after the event has been proven to be closed, after other events have taken place, and try to revive the memories of a so-called victory that was never documented at that particular point in time. So this time lag between when the event happened and when the briefing is being done tells you how desperate Modi government has become to somehow placate a public opinion that is infuriated, and before infuriation, it is actually baffled as to why India, the shining image, is in such a deep soup as far as global standing is concerned. Why the great India that was challenging the mighty Chinese is sending out its prime minister with folded hands and bended knees to the Chinese president asking for re-engagement. Why the mighty Indian lobby in the US has collapsed completely and has not been able to get even a basic audience with the Trump administration as far as their case is concerned. So the Indian public needs something. So in a typical Bollywood fashion, you create an image of a victory, of great men doing great things and feeding it to people who are hungry for this kind of a script. But the script is poorly written because I do believe that the Indian film writers have the capacity to generate some fantastic and engaging scripts. You may not believe that the script has any relevance to reality, which 9 out of 10, you're absolutely right. But you cannot get your eyes off screen. That's the kind of scripts they write, which are visualized into remarkably riveting scenes. But this is not really a riveting scene. It is a pathetic, pitiable scene where the Indian government had to put up its air chief to such public humiliation and censure. If the Indian media wasn't so silent, it will be doing all of these things. But I'm sure in the following days, you would have the international media take up the cudgels against the claims made by the air chief. The Modi government had to do this to its air chief, and the air chief had absolutely no authority to say that, you don't do this. If we had shot down the aircraft, that was the time to tell them. If we had destroyed AWACS standing in a hangar, that was the time to do it. If we had these pictures, that was the time to show it. Now that so much water has passed down the rivers, you don't do that. Do not create a mockery out of me. Do not make me suffer this public humiliation. But obviously, when RSS rules the roost, it is very difficult for the Indian air chief to say no to the Modi government demand. So they enacted a rather farcical theater. And I'm just wondering what must have gone through their minds when they were doing this. Extreme desperation, because you have a public that is yearning for some good news which is not coming. extreme frustration, because you have diplomats telling them that the construct of our ties with the US, which we developed over decades, has collapsed around our ears. Extreme stupidity, thinking that you could hold this kind of a briefing and then get away with it. What were they thinking? Probably all of this. Now, the test case of who did what in the war is never what the Pakistani Air Force was saying, or the Pakistani Army was saying, or what the Indian Army was saying, or what the Indian Air Chief is now saying. But still, the test case of who did what in the war is not what you hear from Pakistan, nor what you were hearing from the Indians in terms of victory claims. The test case is how the big powers that monitor everything through a satellite network were able to mark each and every turn of this conflict. And if those big powers, China, Russia, USA, alongside France, Germany, and Britain, had even an iota of evidence that Pakistanis were given a battering, as claimed by the Indian Air Chief, months after the conflict is over. This, I can tell you, because I've worked in the international media, would have formed the basis of a background briefing in Washington, or somewhere in Moscow, or somewhere in Brussels, or somewhere in Bonn, or somewhere in London. And somebody would have done a fantastic, detailed, insider account of the war. None of that has happened. In fact, the reverse has happened. So much media coverage has been done of how much India lost in this war. Their own army spokesperson, who was again ragged over the coals for speaking the truth, has admitted to the damage that was done to the Indian military infrastructure and airfields. The Reuters has recently done a remarkable story which told the details of how Pakistan was able to knock out the Rafale, and how efficient Pakistan's response was, and how difficult it was for Indian Air Force to even fly the aircraft for a long period of time. This was in the first part of the battle. The second part of the battle, where Pakistan hit number of areas, and I can list those areas for you. Perhaps I'll do it in another broadcast, because right now we need to focus on what the Indians are claiming. So there is documented evidence out there as far as Pakistan's signposts of victory are concerned. But for the Indians to now do this and put their air chief up to this farcical, theatrical, not so convincing, not so engaging, not so riveting performance is really a big new low. Modi is desperate. We understand that. Indian forces are desperate. We understand that. But desperation, frustration, stupidity would fly to such heights we had never imagined.